just how all this
Yes,
plays
ma'am.
out. But we are live now. I think that it's a very interesting time in which we find ourselves living.
Oh, yes.
You know, so the thing is, and the hmm. But we'll talk when we get together today.
Sounds good.
Yeah, because you can't. There's space you don't have publicly.
Right.
So there's certain
Yes,
words you
ma'am.
cannot even use now,
Right.
and it's like, and I see it on YouTube now. They're like, well, I'm not going to mention that word, but you know what? I'm like, wow, this is
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is like you guys. You lose your freedoms piece by
Yeah.
piece, and
Piece
you
by piece.
often and you often lose it uh, on something with which you profoundly disagree, which
Yeah.
takes you away from principle. And I'm like, y'all, this is not a good look for us. But we're going to see. But then, it's just like slavery. But even with slavery, people don't look back at that with a lot of regret, right?
Mhm.
Which
Mhm.
is interesting. We do that with Nazi Germany, but not with slavery because slavery's ours. Nazi
Right.
Germany is a European uh,
Yes.
horror, but we don't we don't want to. America really doesn't want to reckon with this, but it's going to have
Oh
to
no.
if it's going to be right. Don't have to.
Don't like looking in that mirror.
No.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
I need to bring it up just a little bit, Cosme. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. I am so glad to be with you today on the Santita Jackson Show, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. My brothers and sisters to the north in Minneapolis, St. Paul, sending everybody much love. And my morning stars here from all over the world, quite frankly. Carol on the left coast, Carol Crowley, Linda. Oh, my Carol, not me. I want to make that very clear. Sharon, my sweet Sharon, I love you so much. Daniel, I've known Sharon all my life. Joyce, everybody, please like and share, like and share. We've got a lot to talk about today. Excuse me, one of our special guests will be Carrie Kennedy, the head of the Robert Kennedy Foundation. Yes, she is the daughter of Robert Kennedy, the great senator who might have become president. That having been said, she's a lawyer in her own right and a human rights activist. She heads the the organization named after her father, and she went down to the border. She went down to the border, and I want to talk with her about what's happening. Where did all of these thousands of people go? Were they deported? Were they driven back into South and Central America? Got to keep that updated. Of course, we're going to talk about the ongoing struggle over infrastructure, over this money that Americans need with John Nichols in the next hour. And then we're going to talk about the Pandora Papers. If you want to know where all of this money that we need for teachers and people who, doctors and folks who work in the hospital, that's personal infrastructure. The money that we don't have, we saw the very, very wealthy siphon off out of their countries. And oftentimes, some of the poorest countries have some of the richest people. Now, you got to explain that to me. Well, the Pandora Papers help you to see that, and you see that America has become a tax haven and a haven where the very, very wealthy can wash their money. Wow. So, we're going to be talking about that today. And of course, COVID-19 and good news from Reverend Stephen Thurston, the teaching pastor at the Salem Baptist Church, the House of Hope. So let's get to some of these headlines so that we can get on with this show, everybody. Like and share, like and share. Call me or text me at 773-763-9278. 773-763 WCPT. GWC Injury Lawyers gives you the opportunity to text, but you not like hearing those voices. So call me. Let me know what's on your mind, everybody. What do you think about the infrastructure bill? And President Biden is on his way to Michigan today. I think he should be going to West Virginia and Arizona. What do you think? But that's a calculation. I'd like to hear all about it. What are your thoughts? Because Kirsten Cinema, excuse me, and Joe Manchin, mainstream media keeps telling us that they're holding up everything. So why not go into their backyards and stir things up? Well, I'm just Santita. Everybody, Chicago will have a high of 68 degrees today. It will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 74 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down yesterday 323 points. The NASDAQ closed down 311 points. The S&P 500 closed down 7 points. And in the NFL, the Chargers 28, the Oakland Raiders 14. Well. While congressional Democrats try to reach an agreement on the multi-trillion-dollar spending bill, the infrastructure bills, another priority on the Hill this week will be staving off the looming debt crisis. The deadline to suspend or lift the debt ceiling is October 18th, as predicted by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. However, that's really just an estimation, everybody, and there's a possibility the government could risk default many days before that or days after. Republicans as a whole don't want to raise the debt limit and have blocked Democratic attempts to do so. So what do you think about this, everybody? Should the debt limit be raised if we default? On this, on our debts, this will be the first time in our history, and it will throw the world into chaos. Will the American dollar remain the reserve currency of the world? If we go into debt, I'm not so sure, everybody. I'm not so sure. Remember, China is emergent. It is the second biggest economy, and it's growing from strength to strength every day. The International Consortium of Investigative Journalists has released an expose of financial secrets and offshore dealings of dozens of heads of state, public officials, and politicians from 91 countries and territories. Hundreds of journalists spent 2 years investigating the nearly 12 million confidential files that were leaked, now known as the Pandora Papers. We're going to be talking about that with Chuck Collins. He is one of those journalists who did the digging and the analyzing. Vaccination rates in the United States have improved only modestly since the FDA gave full approval to Pfizer's vaccine in August, despite hopes that it would counter widespread vaccine hesitancy. And it's very interesting, everybody. Just spoke with a friend, and they said that, they were trying to get a hotel room in New York City. If you are not fully vaccinated, you cannot get a hotel room there. What do you think about that, everybody? How do you feel about that? They're not asking you, what's more important, being fully vaccinated, being COVID-19 negative, or both? You let me know. 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Members of the Catholic clergy in France sexually abused more than 200,000 minors over the last 70 years, according to a landmark report set to be published today. The numbers are based on estimates from a survey for the commission led by the French National Institute of Health and Medical Research, when including victims of abusers who were not clergy, but had other links to the church, such as Catholic schools and youth programs. The number of possible abuse victims rises to 330,000 people. Wow. What happened to Facebook yesterday? Facebook and its other platforms, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, they went down globally for close to 6 hours, everybody. Did that happen to you? On Monday and Tuesday, depending upon your time zone. Why did it go down? Well, we're still trying to find all of that out. They issued a statement yesterday confirming that the cause of the outage was a configuration change in the backbone routers that coordinate network traffic between the company's data centers, which had a cascading effect, bringing all of Facebook services to a halt. Now, this comes on the heels of, for those of you who try to make some connections, of a revelation that they've not been a fair dealer, Facebook, with the algorithms. So we're going to see what all of this is, because you never know. But we do know it just threw the world into chaos not to be able to have access to Facebook. They really are a public utility. Should they be regulated that way? Now, immigration activists, well, guess what? They are on Capitol Hill looking for Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. And guess what? Some of them followed Senator Sinema into the bathroom demanding action on the reconciliation bill. You can't make this stuff up, everybody. And something major happened out in Hollywood. Milestone moment for labor. 98% of major TV film union members have voted to strike. How will that impact how we see television, all of show business? All of the workers have said that they are going to go on strike. Utilities have cut power to America's customers. We talked about this a couple of days ago, but it bears repeating. While taking huge COVID-19 tax credits. What do you think about that? As they got breaks with because of taxpayer dollars, they still were shutting down people's utilities. What do you think about that, everybody? Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Pastor Stephen Thurston, the author of Mirror Moments. You know, you talk about us looking at each other, looking at ourselves in the mirror. I think these corporations should do that too.
For sure.
I'm like, maybe it's just me. But I think they need to do that too, because I'm telling you, they just do things that just make me go, huh?
Make you say,
Yeah.
yes.
Not you're right. Not but okay, right. Right. Who what's what's the good news today?
With all that you've shared this morning with the highlight reel of what's happening in the world, the good word today is to calm down.
Mm.
All of us feel and experience both positive and negative emotions on a daily basis. And for some of us, though, feeling these emotions can seem overwhelming, like a wild roller coaster ride. And when we look at emotions from an etymological sense, we recognize that our emotions actually move us. The ancients believed that our emotions move our behavior. In our modern context, it suggested that our emotions motivate our behavior. They actually energize us to do things by sending chemical signals to various parts of the body to prepare us for action. And whether subtle or intense, conscious or unconscious, overt or covert, all emotions have one of three motivations, either to approach, avoid, or attack. This is why emotional regulation is an important skill for us to employ as mature adults, because as adults, we're expected to be able to manage our emotions in a manner that's socially acceptable. It's when emotional control fails that people often end up saying and or doing things that they later regret, wishing that they'd been able to keep their emotions in check. Well, what makes controlling our emotions difficult at times is a question somebody's probably pondering. Well, there are a few factors to consider. One is negative beliefs about emotions, that they're bad or that they are something that we aren't able to control. Second, and I think more importantly, a lack of emotional regulation skill and strategy. Our ability to self-regulate has its roots in our childhood developmental years, actually. And the sad reality is that we've all seen adults who still throw tantrums because as children, they weren't taught how to tolerate uncomfortable experiences. And we've been told to think before we act. But the harsh truth, Santita, is that we haven't been taught how to think before we act. Most parents, teachers, and other adults simply expected that we'd grow out of tantrum phase without learning correct strategies for self-regulation. So, Stephen, can we start with clarity on what self-regulation or emotional regulation is? Yes, we can. It's the ability to exert control over one's own emotional state. The ability to calm yourself down when you're upset and cheer yourself up when you're down. It's totally about managing disruptive impulses and emotions. And this is important, audience, because as mature individuals, we ought to have the ability to face emotional, social, and cognitive threats with patience and thoughtfulness. I can see your faces through the radio this morning, and you're saying, well, Stephen, that sounds good, but in the heat of the moment, I don't know how that's actually possible. Well, let me help us to get there. As you develop in the area of self-regulation, you'll reach the point where you're able to make and take a pause between your feelings and your actions. And it's in that pause that you'll think things through. You'll make a plan, and sometimes you'll wait things out patiently. You'll be able to do this because your focus will shift from your feelings to your deepest values. You'll have the overarching long-term goal at the forefront of your mind. And when we don't adequately manage or our disruptive impulses and emotions, we're often left to deal with the anger, the anxiety, the fear, and even the harm that's been done because of an overreaction, and some unnecessary suffering is now the consequence. In its basic form, self-regulation allows us to bounce back from failure and remain calm under pressure. So, Stephen, how do we control our emotions? Because I'm struggling with that right now. Well, there are many ways to influence one's emotional state for the better. Emotional regulation often involves reducing the intensity of our emotions. And this can happen through two techniques: reappraisal and suppression. Reappraisal is changing how you think about something that prompted the emotion. And suppression is pushing emotional thoughts, feelings out of our mind. And you've got to recognize that everyone has a choice in how they respond to a situation. We attack, we can avoid, or we can approach. And your feelings may sway you towards one, but you are more than your feelings. Start restoring balance to your life by focusing on your deeply held values rather than those transient emotions. You've got to see beyond the moment to the bigger picture in the situation. There are two additional tools that you might find helpful in this process. Those are mindfulness and cognitive reframing. Cognitive reframing is a strategy that involves changing your thought patterns and reinterpreting the situation in order to change your emotional response to it. Mindfulness is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the moment and doing so non-judgmentally. It's mindfulness that enables us to put some space between ourselves and our reactions. I need us to recognize that all of this can happen either before we feel an emotion or even after we've begun to react emotionally. It's in developing these skills and strategies that will improve our resilience and our ability to face difficult circumstances in life. One last thought, one last tidbit before I let you go. Changing thoughts is always easier than changing feelings. I'll say it again. Changing our thoughts is always easier than changing our feelings. So listen, here are a few questions that you need to ask yourself to help put better reins on your thoughts as you engage the process I've suggested. Number one, why am I reacting so strongly? Number two, what's the worst or the best that can happen? Number three, what is it that's really pushing my buttons? And finally, how important will this be tomorrow, next week, even next month? My suggestion to us today, Santita, is that we would simply calm down.
Hard to do, but
Yes,
so
ma'am.
necessary. Calm down, step back, and remember what you say, Stephen, Pastor
Yes,
Thurston.
ma'am.
You can't take
It
it
matters.
back. You can't take it
That's right.
back. Just remember
Can't erase
that.
it.
Mm-mm. You can apologize, but you
Yes.
can't take it back. And
Yeah.
you impress someone's brain and spirit and soul with the things that you say. So,
That's it.
you know, which starts with your thoughts. How about that? So thank you for
Yes, ma'am.
that. Mindfulness, I mean, because this is, we have to train our thinking. We have to retrain. Thank you. Retrain. Just really, we have to do this. We really have to do that. That is the good news today. You have the power to do it, and do it, everybody.
Yep.
Joyce said, changing our thoughts are always easier than changing your feelings. You said something, and Sharon Ashley said, thank you. Carol said, thank you, Pastor, and on and on and on. Whatever your faith commitment, or whether you have one or not, I hope that these good news segments give you something that helps you have a better day, that helps you have a good day, everybody. Like and share,
Yeah.
like and share. Hey, Felicia Marie McLaughlin. Hey. Sending everybody much love today. We've got Dr. Deborah Holden. Got Dr. Deborah Holden with us today, of course, as she is with us every day. We're going to be talking about the Pandora Papers at the bottom of the hour. All of this money, these trillions of dollars that are hidden, some of it hidden in the United States. So, Dr. Deborah Holden, What's on your mind today? Is it COVID-19? Is it our health overall? Boy, oh boy. It seems like every day we're getting some news, different studies that are released by these pharmaceutical companies about their vaccines. Is it important to hear from the companies, or should there be an independent assessment of how these
Yeah, well,
vaccines are working?
yeah, it's think of it this way: they have real skin in the game for everything to be kosher, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have a real vested self interest in having a product that is rated highly, that's safe, that's effective, and all of that. The good news is we have systems in place in the U.S., checks and balances and other things where we can get that with certainty. This is why I also try to explain to people. People have said, why couldn't all the scientists come together and make one global vaccine? I don't actually think we want that. I think the marketplace does create a certain kind of competition that I think is good, that I think will fuel the kind of innovation and all that stuff that we need. But what we have in the U.S. and our regulatory checks and balances for medications, both development, clinical trials, testing, moving things out into the human population, is the highest of any country in the nation. The highest of any country in the nation. It's why people will go to other countries to get medications that are highly regulated here or harder to get here. So they don't have the same checks and balances in place in other places. And so I wouldn't take the word of the pharmaceutical companies because they're not the regulatory agency. They're the people with a vested interest in profit making and, having it be that their product is the best one on the market. We have agencies. We have the FDA. We have the CDC. I was on the CDC's website yesterday. They have cataloged their own plus all of the other ongoing large-scale studies that are tracking vaccine effectiveness. Now, none of these studies, I believe, are actually comprehensive. And when I say comprehensive, it's not a census. It's not a census of every single COVID case, right? In an ideal world, for every single case, we'd know, were you vaccinated? Were you fully vaccinated? And which vaccine did you have? And when did you have it, right? But there's also this issue of waning immunity. So our breakthrough cases, people who were, have some waning immunity, our breakthrough cases more prevalent with some vaccines over the other. CDC is now starting to catalog all of that stuff, so we'll be able to answer those questions. So my thing is this: be very leery of what the pharmaceutical companies say. They shouldn't, by law, be lying. But again, they have an agenda. And their agenda is that their product be the top product and that everybody feel good about using it and taking it. FDA, they don't have that dog in the fight. CDC, they don't have that dog in the fight. Their concern is that, our citizens are taking safe and effective medication.
Everybody, Dr. Deborah Holden letting us know the entities that we need to be listening to. Pay attention to everything, right? But
Sure.
the FDA, they're the ones who regulate this. That's why when these two FDA officials left a couple of weeks ago, that was very, very important. That was a great moment. So pay attention to everything. And of course, every morning you can hear Dr. Deborah Holden giving you information that you can use. Indeed, we're so excited because a lot of people, you have been their guiding light on vaccines. You've become their guiding light on health because they trust you and because everything you've told us has turned out to be true. Dr. Deborah Holden, the most fabulous glamour in the world, the glamour of India. That is how we now know her. That's right. Talking about the Pandora Papers, sending her much love. You know what, Dr. Deborah Holden? I need you to spend more time with us tomorrow morning because we need to talk about going into the holiday season and traveling now.
Yep.
Okay? Because now in New York City, if you don't have a vaccine, you can't get a hotel room, right? So if you get into the hotel, what should your expectations be of the hotel, right? I mean, there's so many questions that we have. So many questions that we have. We love you so much, everybody. Talking with Chuck Collins about the Pandora Papers. They're really important. Maurice, I'm coming to you on the other side of the break. Hey, Shirley from Philadelphia, back in just a minute. Dr. Deb, how you doing?
Good. I did something a little different today.
What you do?
It was good up until one point. I decided I needed to get up and exercise every morning. So I got
Really?
up and I went on the jog in my neighborhood, and then they called, and so I had to start walking because, Lord, I would be over here breathing real heavy. And I have gotten 3.5 miles in this morning.
Have you really?
Yes, I did. I have, and I came out here about, let's see here, I came outside at about, I figured I could get 30 minutes in. I came out at about quarter till, maybe 20 minutes till 7. So, yeah, I'm feeling real accomplished today.
Oh my goodness! I thought I heard you breathing a little heavily, but that's a good thing. But it
Yeah,
sounded
I'm
like
on
it sounded like a deep breathing that you do with exercising. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I'm doing a triathlon sprint in May. So I will be training for that all winter and in the spring.
Okay.
I have Chuck Collins on the line.
So that's a bike, a swim, a bike, and then a run, all in one event.
Where will that be? Thank you so much, Coach Mate. Will that be in? Where will that be? Will that be in Baltimore or in Flint?
It's called the Ohio Tough Man. It will be in Ohio.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep, the Ohio Tough Man.
Well, I am sending you much love.
I'll be the tough grandma.
Girl, look.
Thank you.
No, Glamma.
Yeah.
Glamma. We just love you. Thank you, girlie.
All right.
I'm going to call you a little bit later. We missed you last night. That's all right.
Hey, Miss Jackson, what should I tell the caller that called in line to ask Dr. Deb a question? Should I
didn't know that he wanted to ask her a question.
Yeah, no, he wanted to ask Dr. Deb a question about the efficacy of the vaccine.
Okay, you got to let me know because I just saw the women's march.
I sent you a text. I don't know if you saw it.
No, clearly not.
Yeah, no, I sent that text at 7:26.
6:26.
Yeah, sorry, 6:26.
Okay, no, I saw something about we have Maurice calling from the West Side and the ladies' march this past Saturday. And then I just saw this. I'm just seeing it, Daniel from Indianapolis. So,
you know, he called in like right as we were going to break.
Okay, well, just sometimes put those things in my ear, and like when you get a guest up, put that in my ear because I need to know that immediately. Okay.
I'll just tell Daniel to call him tomorrow.
No, let me speak. Let me speak with Daniel very quickly.
Okay.
Okay, let me do that. Right, okay.
He's on.
Daniel.
I have him up.
Okay, well, Daniel?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, I am so sorry. I just let Dr. Deborah Holden go. Can you call back in the morning? When you called in at the end of the segment. She's going to be on longer tomorrow, okay?
I didn't hear you. Could you say that again?
Oh,
please?
I'm sorry, honey. She's going to be on longer tomorrow. Can you call tomorrow morning? Daniel?
He hung up.
Okay. All right. Chuck Collins?
Hello, good morning.
It's always wonderful hearing your voice.
Great hearing your voice.
30 seconds.
And everything you do just busts up the world every time I turn around. I knew this. I knew your hands were all over this.
Yeah, I had to keep a secret. I had to keep a secret from you, though.
Oh, my gosh. I couldn't believe this. And I started looking. I said, I know Chuck did this.
I know all my friends are like, how come you don't return my phone calls? How come you're... And I'm like, I'm working on it.
5 seconds.
I can't tell you about it.
Man, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. I hope that you will go to the Rainbow Push website, rainbowpush.org, and register virtually for the Creating Opportunity Conference, October 14th and 15th. You don't want to miss it. You can register for free. If you want to figure out how to get some opportunities, business opportunities, create them in this moment, do that, because guess what, everybody else is doing that. Have you heard of the Pandora Papers? Some people are calling the United States the biggest peddler of financial secrecy in the world. 11.9 million documents were leaked, and we have found that some of the poorest countries have some of the richest leaders, and they hide a lot of money in the United States. But you know what, the details of which, I mean, if you of course, I've posted it on my social media. You really need to go into this and read the analysis of the Pandora Papers. And of course, someone who's been at the heart of this, and I knew he had been, the author of Wealth Hoarders. You know him. He's been on the show so many times. He's a member of the family here. Chuck Collins. Over the last 3 months, you've been briefing members of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists on the wealth hiding systems in the United States. Chuck Collins, what have you done aside from setting the world on fire?
Well, I think part of what we've done is we have unmasked this global system where the super wealthy kind of hide their money. They play shell games with their money. But the big important point for us is that now the rest of the world knows the United States is a tax haven. We are the place where criminals and deadbeats and billionaires who just want to hide their money are parking their money. So it's not out on some Caribbean island or over in some little principality like Monaco. It's here in places like South Dakota and Nevada and Delaware. So my job has been to kind of try to explain a lot to foreign journalists, why is it that South Dakota is where people bring their money to hide it? That's been my job for the last couple of months. So it's been really interesting.
Well, before we get to South Dakota, we always hear about the Cayman Islands, we hear about the Caribbean, we hear about Switzerland, we hear about Monaco, we hear about these faraway places. What happened? How did America become the haven for the wealthiest people in the world? I mean, some of the people of the poorest countries have the fattest bank accounts. What happened here? How did this happen?
Yeah. A couple things happened. One is, and actually it's a good thing, when President Obama came into office, he saw this system, and so he started to negotiate treaties with countries like Switzerland. So if a U.S. citizen took their money to Switzerland, those Swiss banks would have to report to U.S. tax authorities. Remember the old idea that you would create a Swiss bank account, you know? Well, that is no more. And then 5.5 years ago, the Panama Papers were published, and that was like the first big leak. And it mostly exposed politicians in Europe and other parts of the world, but not in the United States. So other countries started to clean up their act. They started to require corporations to disclose who their real owners were. They started to crack down on illicit funds. But the United States, basically, we were the laggards. We didn't fix our systems. And so the rest of the world started to become more transparent in terms of their financial systems, and the United States became the weak link. So if you were a billionaire or a politician and you'd stolen money from your own people, you know, where do you take it? It used to be you took it to London or to Luxembourg, but those places are not as good for hiding your money anymore. So now you bring it to the good old US of A, and you go to these weak link states, like as we talked about, Delaware and South Dakota.
Well, why are they weak link states? We hear about the Delaware corporations, but South Dakota, explain Delaware, President Biden's state, by the way, and South Dakota. I mean, where really nobody is living.
Yeah. So what those states have done is they've changed their laws, they've changed their rules to make, in the case of South Dakota, to make trusts live forever. it used to be that if you formed a trust, it would have a limited lifespan, but they've created something we call dynasty trusts where wealthy people can park money for generations. Delaware, of course, has made a huge amount of money providing services to incorporate limited liability companies, LLCs, that are anonymous. You don't have to disclose who the real owners are. So Delaware is kind of like the place if you're, running a pornography website or trying to funnel money to a stripper with, that you're trying to hush money with. You run it through your Delaware company, and unless there's a leak, no one will know about it. So that's those cling to lower our standards to attract the coin of the realm.
Why should the average American be concerned about this? I mean, is this taking anything from the average American or no?
Well, there's a lot of wealthy people from the United States who use this system to avoid paying taxes. So basically, one harm is that it raises taxes on the rest of us. When wealthy people basically use their power to avoid paying their fair share of taxes, the rest of us have to pay the bill for infrastructure and caring for veterans or, helping people during a pandemic. We basically are stuck with the bill. But the other reason is this system allows criminals from around the world and people who steal money from their own countries to funnel the money out of their country using the same system. And so we're kind of like the getaway car drivers. We're accomplices to this plunder and theft from countries from around the world. And that's unfortunate. And I guess the third reason we should care is it worsens economic inequality. Some of these families are socking away billions of dollars. They're going to form dynasties going forward for decades and possibly centuries. And that's going to cause, that's going to harm the United States as a society where other people should have an opportunity. We should be taxing that wealth and investing it in ways that create opportunity for everybody, not allowing the rich to hoard their money.
We're talking with Chuck Collins. He's been at the heart of the Pandora Papers. I just love his work. You've got to get his book, The Wealth Hoarders, How Billionaires Pay Millions to Hide Trillions, everybody, to hide trillions. This tranche of papers, 11.9 million documents. It's something that we've never seen before. And he has been helping to really shape all of this to help us to understand what these documents have revealed. And so I want to hear from you. 773-763 WCPT, 773-763-9278. I mean, because I saw something that the head of tax policy at Oxfam said this in a statement. This is where our missing hospitals are, Chuck. This is where the pay packets sit of all the extra teachers and firefighters and public servants that we need whenever a politician or business leader claims there is no money to pay for climate change and innovation, for more and better jobs, for a fair post-COVID recovery, for more overseas aid. They know where to look. What do you think about that?
Well, that's exactly the point. That, when all this wealth is sort of hidden and pushed out into the shadows, and at the global level, we think it's as much as $30 trillion of wealth is hidden in these offshore systems. That is the wealth of the nations. That is the money that we need. We could have used that money to better prepare our public health systems to face the pandemic. Instead, the rich have stopped paying taxes, and our societies have become more brittle, more unequal, more fragile. Those are our missing hospitals. Those are the pay raises that teachers should get. Those are the infrastructure and the potholes that should be fixed. So every time you see something that's broken in Chicago or Milwaukee and you're driving along, just think, if those billionaires were paying their fair share of taxes, our society would be way better off. And it shouldn't just be working people, low-income people who have to pay the bills. And what we're seeing is the rich have made the tax system almost optional for the people who have the greatest capacity to pay.
How are, well, give me some of the biggest offenders and how are they able to get money? Wh- How do, where does it, I'm just trying to figure out, does this ever happen? Well, let me start here. Does it ever happen with America's politicians?
You know, one of the things that's unfortunate is a lot of these data leaks are from sort of wealth advisory firms in countries like Belize and Singapore and countries where wealthy Americans don't necessarily go to get their services. So we have fewer examples and fewer names from the United States. And that's unfortunate because I think if we did, there'd be more of a wake up. We need a leak from a U.S. Trust company. Anybody listening here who wants to help out with that, give me a call. So, you know, but that means, you know, we don't always see the names. But, you know, here's an example. Someone like Phil Knight, right, the founder, CEO of Nike, is a guy who uses all kinds of trusts, you know, grant or retained annuity trusts. These are like, there's a whole alphabet soup of tax dodges and loopholes that the super wealthy use. We know that half, according to ProPublica, half of the richest 100 people in the United States use these trusts to avoid paying any kind of inheritance tax so they can pass unlimited money to their children. And I'm not talking about ordinary low folks. We're talking about people with 30 million, 50 million, all the way up to $1 billion. So, in fact, think about that. Half of the richest people in the United States are implicated here just in terms of using these complicated trusts to dodge their taxes.
But no one talks about that. I mean, because, you know, and I think these papers are extremely important because it's striking that some of the poorest countries produce some of the richest leaders. And that seems, Chuck, that's always been the case. And then I remember when President Obama was in Africa and he was talking about, well, you know, we want to do business with you, but you got to clean up the corruption. I said, now come on. And then you had Vice President Harris, who pretty much said the same thing when she, uh, you know, went past the border. Uh, do these leaders look at us and say, are you serious?
Well, now they look at us and say, you don't really have a lot of authority to talk about, you know, how we should clean up our corruption when you have this corrupt wealth hiding system, when the U.S. itself is a tax haven. And this is a huge story around the world. The Pandora Papers, you know, just down south of the border in Mexico, there are 3,000 millionaires and politicians that were implicated in the Pandora Papers. People close to the current president and previous presidents, people in charge of public agencies, all have created shell companies so they can buy, you know, real estate in Miami and funnel money out of the country. So this is going to rock a lot of countries who have seen money flowing out. You know, we know for every dollar of aid that goes to Africa, $3 of illicit funds flow out. So, you know, the United States should be part of fixing that. But clearly the first step is we got to get our own house in order. We got to shut down this hidden wealth system here in the U.S. But it completely undermines our moral authority to tackle corruption when we are the accomplices.
Well, let me ask you this. We're the accomplices, but how are we the accomplices? Does the American government give cover to American corporations? That is to say, we give them aid, and then the corporations go in, they cut their deals, and then we keep politicians, elected officials, and I put that in quotation marks, who are beholden to the United States, who might not really be, they might not be the choice of the people, but somehow or another they stay in power. Chuck Collins. And it just seems that we're at the heart of a lot of this mischief, the United States.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways in which obviously the U.S. government props up corrupt people. But when I say we're an accomplice, we're kind of an accomplice in the outflow of the money. So just looking at, you know, where are the wealthy and corrupt people bringing their money? When they bring it to the United States and hide it here, that's how we are accomplices. And if we're going to really affect, and here's the thing: the U.S. lawmakers, U.S. Congress could shut down this system overnight. We could enter into treaties with other countries to increase transparency and monitoring of corporations and how much taxes they're paying. We could outlaw certain kinds of trusts that serve no purpose other than hiding wealth. And we could enforce the existing tax laws in our own country, but we don't. So we are responsible, at least starting with getting our own act together, getting our own house in order, and then working with the rest of the world to close down the secrecy jurisdictions. That's where, we have a lot of power and but unfortunately, our Congress and the, Republicans have voted for 15 years to decimate the Internal Revenue Service. Now, none of us like the IRS. We love the IRS, but it is the oversight body that follows these kind of shell games that the super rich pay, and their ability to do that has been decimated. In fact, you're more likely to get audited for using the earned income credit than you are if you use one of these exotic tax loopholes. So right now the priorities are completely messed up. But President Biden has said, look, I want to invest in rebuilding the capacity of the IRS to follow the antics of the super rich. That's a really important step. So we have a lot of work to do in the U.S., but we have a huge amount of power to fix this situation.
And you're saying that the United States has the power to fix a system, a global system, not just our own. Because now the IRS, the proposal from the Biden administration is to track transactions more than $600 or above in our accounts. And I said, okay, you're still going after the small guy, the person who gigs for a living. And then literally right after that, I see the Pandora Papers. And I said, whoa, let me ask you this. How do these leaders make all of this money? They might, they have low salaries, relatively speaking. Certainly you don't amass tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and billions of dollars on the salaries that they make. How are they able to make this money?
Well, in some ways it's not that different than in the United States, graft and bribes and other forms of money that, so let's say in Mexico, you want to build a school, and you're the public official in charge of building schools, and those contractors want your business, you're going to get additional fees that are higher than your salary. So where do you go? Where does that money go? Well, that's when you create your offshore bank account in the British Virgin Islands, and you buy your real estate in the United States. You basically funnel the public purse money that you've skimmed. That's often how it happens. Sometimes you have people who just just grab money or create false contracts and pay themselves for services and then funnel that money out. So it's sort of the same graft and bribery and skimming that happens all over. But the United States is the final destination for a lot of that money.
What will happen now? I mean, now that this has been opened up, this is a big story in the United States, but like you said, it's a huge story internationally. Do you expect leaders to be removed from power? Do you expect some Americans who might have sold properties to a lot of these leaders, will they have some problems?
Well, certainly in other countries, a lot of politicians are going to feel the heat. I mean, the Pandora Papers identified 300 public officials. They were all implicated in these leaks. Some of them are heads of state. We may see, the head of state of Cyprus and, Jordan is obviously a dictatorship, but they're going to, the King Abdullah of Jordan is going to feel the heat. So some people are going to obviously resign or be fired or lose their jobs or be voted out because of their involvement in the Pandora Papers. Here in the United States, that probably won't be the case, but we're going to start to feel more and more deserved pressure from other countries for the U.S. to clean up its act. I mean, one of the, I have to say, we've kind of known this system has been around for a while, but it's fascinating to see the real details, right? The biggest orange juice magnate in Brazil, who has all these human rights violations and lawsuits against him for not paying his own workers, moved a bunch of his money to South Dakota. Mm-hmm. Why are we coddling criminals from Brazil? So obviously people from Brazil are looking at the United States saying, why are you helping these people? Why are you helping undermine our own rule of law here in Brazil? And, so I think we're going to feel more pressure. And the reality is, President Biden, we have a really important agenda right now, which is this Build Back Better agenda. We need to be able to tax the wealthy in this country and help pay for these investments in infrastructure and daycare and jobs and all that. And we were not going to be able to do that with this hidden wealth system in place. We just won't be able to. The rich are going to opt out. So we have to fix that as part of moving forward and making our society a better society too.
So you're saying ultimately, in order to pay for the public servants that we need, in order to pay for our infrastructure, we're seeing a lot of this money because we've seen some of these revelations before. The first revelation I heard several years ago was more than $20 trillion the wealthy in the United States have hidden offshore. But now we're seeing, it seems like the numbers are just continuing to mushroom. What can we do to make things right, Chuck Collins?
I think part of it is as we go through our days, look at the systems that are broken and realize a big part of this is because the wealth of our country is being hidden. And to the extent we have any voice with our elected officials or with our neighbors or with even local politicians, we should say, how come we're not fixing that? Why are we tolerating this system? And, let's support President Biden's agenda to rebuild the tax oversight of wealthy people. Let's make these public investments, but let's also raise taxes on the wealthy and enforce existing tax laws. And let's make the states that are changing their laws, let's pass federal legislation that basically makes it impossible for states to undercut the rule of law around the world. And here in the U.S., we have decentralization, right? Illinois and Massachusetts and Vermont and Mississippi, we all have very separate, very different laws. But that's where sometimes having the federal government step in and saying, we're going to create some rules, some higher standards, and states cannot go below those standards. And I think that's an important part of how we fix this.
Chuck Collins, everybody, we owe him so much, so much. He's the author of the book, The Wealth Hoarders, How Billionaires Pay Millions to Hide Trillions. You just cannot believe this. But the Pandora Papers, he sat with members of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists on the wealth hiding systems in the United States. And this is what we got. And you know what? If we get this right, we'll be able to get the firemen and the firewomen and the police officers, and we'll be able to rebuild our school systems. There is so much that we will be able to do if we get this right. And then, we can have some moral authority in the world. Because right now, people looking at us, Chuck Collins, like we are crazy. It's just nuts. I knew you were up to something. I hadn't talked to you in a minute. I knew it was something. But it's always something good.
I know I had to keep a secret from you, but not anymore.
Okay. It's always something good, everybody. The brilliant Chuck Collins. We've got Kerry Kennedy coming up, so we can get an update on Haiti, everybody. Where did those thousands of people go? Where? People don't evaporate. Oh, no. We don't evaporate into thin air. There's someplace. And we've got to look at why it was so hard for these asylum seekers to get asylum in the United States. For the most part, they didn't get it. So got a lot to talk about. And then what's happening with this infrastructure fight in Washington. John Nichols at the bottom of the next hour. I'm Santita Jackson. Everybody get this wonderful book, The Wealth Hoarders, by Chuck Collins, my dear friend. Back in just a few minutes. Chuck Collins, thank you so much.
With the help of Cheerios Oat Crunch Almond.
Chuck ended up leaving right after.
Okay, but thank you. Please
Yeah.
let me know as soon as Miss Kennedy is up.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for her call right now.
Okay.
Did you want me to maybe just connect Maurice through?
Yes.
Because I don't know if
Yes.
I don't know. Sorry, something got stuck in my throat. I don't know if his question's going to line up with the topics coming up.
No, that's okay. I just, I wanted to get as much out of Mr. Collins as possible, but I certainly want to acknowledge Maurice.
Okay, I'll connect him through right now.
Of course. Thank you.
He's on the line.
Maurice?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, sweetie. I'm sorry. They said that you wanted to ask a question about the Women's March, and I was trying to get over here. But if you want to talk about Haiti or something, or if you just want to make a comment about the Women's March, you are more than welcome to do that.
Okay, I look forward to that and to tie it in with the Pandora Papers too.
Oh, wow! Isn't that an incredible discovery?
It's all about economics, really, Santita.
I would think you would call for the Pandora Papers. Everybody.
Yeah.
It's all about the economics for Maurice. Period. Economic empowerment specifically. I just love you, Maurice. He is a pit bull on this money, on the economy. I'm not mad at you.
Hey, are those people on that list pit bulls about the money?
Oh, look, everybody. But it's interesting. We have not. We are so expert at hiding the money. We don't see that happen here in the United States. We don't see how it happens here, and it sure does.
That's why we have Santita 6 o'clock Monday through Friday to help enlighten us. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm glad your mom and dad are doing better. Praise God for that blessing.
God is
Very
good.
remarkable people.
God is good.
Yes.
God is good, and God is good no matter what. No matter what I think, God is good, and I'm just grateful though that we had this outcome. But God has blessed us so much in our lives. I cannot complain about anything that God chooses to do.
And that's why we have to make God our very first priority. I can give us this kind of outcome every trip.
Well, whatever. I just, what it is, Maurice. I just want to have the strength, the understanding, and the appreciation to accept whatever God's will is. You don't bargain with God, right?
That's what counts, right?
It's just
Let
like,
me tell you this.
yeah, yes.
Santita, before you hit on something so incredible, that is why when the disciple asked him, Father, how should we pray? He said, Thy will be done. That's what you got to ask him.
Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, because it's already been done.
Come on, girl. Come on,
It's already been done. It's already been done. So, you don't bargain with God. You ask God to give you the capacity to see as God does. The older I get, Effie Rolfe, who, absolutely. Effie Rolfe, the legendary radio personality and producer here in Chicago. I love Effie. When she was over at iHeart, before my father would do Keep Hope Alive on Sundays, he'd go over to do her show just to say hey and just, say hello to everybody in the studios. And one day she just asked, she put a call out to her audience. She said, okay, if you could sit with God if you had one request of God to ask, what would you ask? And people were like, I want a car, I want a house, I want my husband, okay. No man called in for a wife. Okay, but I'll leave that alone. But when she asked my father that, none of y'all did that. But she said, my father immediately responded, how can I please thee? I said, ooh.
Right.
Ooh.
And you know what? That's why he's blessed with such longevity. That's why he's such it's like when King Solomon, same thing, the way God blessed him, same thing.
Yeah, but you know what?
We're talking about the same God, Santita.
Absolutely, but you know what? Jesus wasn't blessed with longevity, but look at Jesus. Dr. King wasn't blessed with longevity.
That was a very special case. Now,
but I'm just saying, if you just use the time that God gives you, boom, right? Just
Yeah, 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 yeah.
use that time. Use that time. So I'm gonna let you want to say you want to make a comment on the air, Maurice?
Okay, okay, yeah, please, please. May
Okay,
I?
sweetie. I'm gonna put you. Of course. I'm gonna put you on hold, and because
Okay,
I'm
okay.
trying to find out where I want to make sure my guest is coming in.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Okay. Thank you,
This
sweetie.
has been like church. This has been like church, girl.
I just love my Maurice.
All right, all right, all right.
I still have not gotten that call from Miss Kennedy. I'll
Okay.
keep an eye out for it though.
Okay. Please do. Just let me know because she might be calling in at
Yep.
10 after. So.
Why give your family just ordinary eggs when they can enjoy the best? Eggland's Best. The only eggs with more fresh and delicious taste, plus superior nutrition compared to ordinary
We have
eggs.
about a minute, 5 seconds.
Okay.
10 times more vitamin E.
And like I said, just put
Saturated fat,
uh,
38%
when she calls in, just put that in my ear.
Yeah, we
Okay.
will do.
Because texting takes too much time.
better nutrition, better
Hey, everybody, call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. I love Effie Roth too, Joyce. That's my girl. My girl, my girl.
or police stations within 30 days of birth. Mothers do not have to answer any questions or give any information and are assured of complete anonymity if they follow the Illinois Safe Haven Law. Your baby deserves a chance. To learn more, call the confidential helpline at 1-888.
All right, I just got her connected.
Of
The
course.
show's gonna be starting, so I will run the board. Then as soon as we're up, I'll put her in. I'll connect her
Perfect.
through.
Thank you so much.
Information and insight you'll need to win the water cooler.
Hey, Paula, how you doing, Paula? Renee.
Oh,
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT 820 here in Chicago, and AM 950 radio in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and on Facebook and on YouTube. Everybody go to my YouTube page because that didn't go down yesterday. And so Dr. Eve said, you know what, we're really trying to point people to YouTube. And in fact, Facebook told me that last year. So would you please try to go over to the Santita Jackson Show and like and subscribe and watch us from there? The Santita Jackson Show, everybody. That's where the morning stars really ought to start moving toward, okay? The Santita Jackson Show. I'm Santita Jackson. I want to hear your voices today. 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Oh, if you want to text us, that's GWC Injury Lawyers. That's giving you the opportunity to do that. I want to hear your thoughts about Haiti. Where did the people go? What happened? What about the asylum seekers? If they didn't get sanctuary here, where did they get it, or where are they? Where are they? What is the 411, if you will? Attorney Carrie Kennedy, went down to the border, and we're going to talk with her about what she saw and where we are heading with these uneven immigration and asylum policies that we have in the United States. And then John Nichols will be talking with us about this infrastructure fight. Call 202-224. 3121 202 224 3121. Let these representatives know, whether they represent you or not, that you want these infrastructure bills passed and you want them right now, not a penny less than the $3.5 trillion for personal infrastructure and the $1 trillion plus for our bridges and roads. The American Society of Civil Engineers says that we need more than $20 trillion to get things right. Think about that, everybody. Think about it. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 68 degrees. It will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 74 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 323 points yesterday. The Nasdaq closed down 311 points. The S&P 500 closed down 7 points. And in NFL football, everybody, last night, the Chargers were triumphant over the Raiders. The Chargers 28, the Raiders 14. Well, in Congress, everybody, they're trying to reach an agreement on this multi-trillion-dollar spending bill. And we have another priority. We're looking at the debt ceiling. Will it be lifted? The Republicans are saying no. The Democrats are saying yes. If we default on our debt, it will be the first time in the United States history that we have done that. Will we remain the reserve currency of the world? There are a lot of implications for this. Call 202-224-3121. Tell these representatives to lift the debt ceiling. We need it, everybody. We just spoke with Chuck Collins, the author of Wealth Hoarders, about his push to have the Pandora Papers revealed, everybody. He consulted with international consortium of investigative journalists for months, and they came up with a packet of 11.9 million documents that they analyzed, everybody. It's an expose of the financial secrets and offshore dealings of dozens of heads of state, public officials, and politicians from 91 countries and territories. And what's been revealed is that America has become a safe haven for that money in the world. What do you think about that? Wonderful conversation we had with him. If you want to hear it in its entirety, please go to my podcast, WCPT820.com/Santita, WCPT820.com/Santita. Vaccination rates in the United States have improved only modestly since the FDA gave full approval to Pfizer's vaccine in August, despite hopes that it would counter widespread vaccine hesitancy. From August 23rd to September 3rd, the 7-day average of new Pfizer doses increased by 16%, from 575,000 per day to 668,000 per day. Yet only 15% of newly vaccinated people during that time said full approval was a major reason they got the shot. Facebook outage. Did that happen to you yesterday? Well, it happened to billions of people all around the world. Why did it happen, and why did it take so long? That is something that we will see over time. But boy, are we glad that WhatsApp and Facebook and Messenger and Instagram are back. But wow, what an inconvenience. Are they a public utility or what, everybody? Pfizer is saying that their vaccine is 90% effective against hospitalization, some 6 months after you've been fully vaccinated, everybody. Milestone moment out in Hollywood. 98% of major TV film unions are voting to strike, everybody. So let's get right to this, everybody. What happened at the border? We were absolutely devastated to see these black asylum seekers chased by horses, kept on one side, not given adequate facilities to clean themselves, to relieve themselves. They were not treated in a humane way. And you had some people who went down to the border because they were so concerned. And one of the persons who I should have known that she would go, because her family has been at the forefront of human rights for so many decades, Carrie Kennedy, who said, I want to go. I want to see what's happening down there. Indeed, she's head of the organization named after her own father, the Robert Kennedy organization, and they deal with human rights, everybody. And I just want to thank her. And I don't gush often, but I have to tell you, all that your family has done down through the years to at the highest levels as president, as senator, as presidential candidate in Congress. Indeed, your cousin and my brother were across the hall from each other when they were in Congress together years ago. Uh, you have always fought. You've always fought to to look at people from who live on the downside of advantage. You've really, I guess, remained in the highest traditions of the Irish tradition. You didn't become British, if I may say so, and I got to say that. Thank you so much for being with us, Carrie Kennedy, today. Blessings to you. How are you today?
I'm so fine. Happy to be speaking with you. I'm here in Hyannisport, Massachusetts. It's a rainy day, and I'm thinking about my daughter who lives there, Father Christopher, and so many other family and friends, and wishing I were with you all in person.
Well, we want you to come back to Chicago real soon because, this is your town too. The merchandise mart and just so much that you've done. Absolutely. And then your cousin ran for governor. Just have so much admiration and respect for you all because you just continue to try to serve and you do that. You are a human rights activist and a lawyer in your own right. When you heard about these thousands of people at the border, these thousands of Haitian asylum seekers at the border, Why did you feel the need? Why did you feel compelled to go down there?
Well, I think we all saw those horrific pictures of the Border Patrol on horseback pushing Haitian migrants into the Rio Grande, where they face potential drowning. And I think that the actions of the immigration officers on horseback reflect a much larger immigration system steeped in racism and cruelty. The events that we witnessed illustrate the clear results of white supremacy, centuries of exploitation, and the failure of the U.S. immigration system. And this crisis was not caused by Haitian migrants, but by deliberate lack of resources for asylum seekers, a lack of legal screening, and Governor Abbott's total militarization of the border. There are approximately 14,000 Haitians, including pregnant people and families with small children, who were trapped between the U.S. Customs, U.S. BPP, and Mexican authorities and denied the legally required credible fear screenings. And these individuals were refugees and asylum seekers, most of whom have been waiting in Mexico for years to request legal relief. The majority are survivors of the 2010 earthquake and haven't been to Haiti in over 3 years. So we went down, lawyers and advocates from the Haitian Bridge Alliance and RFK Human Rights and others on the ground there. We were prevented from accessing the camp. Meanwhile, the CBP provided escort for Fox News and propaganda, but denied access to humanitarian relief groups and other journalists. And the camps were rapidly emptied in what we understand is an effort to cover evidence of unlawful abuse and deport those who witnessed and directly experienced that abuse.
So they allowed Fox News and other news organizations to get close to us, to the asylum seekers, but they wouldn't let you. Why?
Well, that's a question for them, but both RFK and other Haitian Bridge Alliance and other organizations were denied access.
That's unbelievable. We're talking with Carrie Kennedy, the president of the Robert Kennedy Human Rights Organization. She was at the border. She is a human rights activist and lawyer in her own right. And what did you see? I mean, what did you see when you got there?
It was pretty extraordinary because eventually we were able to pass through, and we saw just teeming masses of people. All the people I saw were families, fathers holding infants, mothers holding toddlers, with the Rio Grande right in back of them on a small spit of land underneath this bridge, and a wire fence. And then on the other side, and then you saw the tents. Like I saw a tent that was made of bamboo poles, sticks that had been lying around, and abandoned cardboard boxes, and somebody's skirt, and that's what people are living in. And all these families and families and families. And then on the other side, on the other side of this fence, because this is all on U.S. territory, on the other side of this fence is complete militarization. Big black, $100,000 SUVs lined up. Men, almost all of them white, in uniform, blazing, brand new, clean, crisp uniforms, all of them with huge amounts of ammunition and guns. And you think, what are we afraid of? These are families who are desperate. And look at who this is. Think about this person. live in abject poverty. You then experience the hurricanes and then the earthquake that devastates not only your family, your home, your neighborhood, but your entire city and the infrastructure of your country. You figure out how to get yourself and maybe your kids, perhaps your husband, onto a boat to some country in Latin America where you don't speak the language. You live there for maybe 8 years. You figure out how to get a job, how to make it work, how to put your kids in school, how to access health care. And then you hear that they're letting people into the border. You might be reunited with your family in the United States. So then you figure out how to walk from Peru or Brazil or Panama up through Central America to Del Rio, Texas, wherever that is. And you get there, and you're at the bridge. You know that I think we should allow every single one of those people into this country and ask them to come run IBM. How about that for existence? How about that extraordinary drive? How about that capacity to go on when there's just nothing left in you? I mean, our country would be so enriched with that kind of spirit, and we'd be full of doctors and lawyers and political leaders who care deeply for people who are in trouble. So that's my opinion.
Well, I mean, but that's a big, 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 big idea. I mean, because it seems that no country is so rich that it can throw away human potential, just human beings. I mean, what we're doing is throwing away people. And I'm trying to figure out, Kerry Kennedy, the head of Robert Kennedy Human Rights, that organization. And many people are asking, you are the daughter of Senator Robert Kennedy. And we thank you for all of public service is just in the Kennedy veins, because all of you are always trying to continue to serve people. And we thank you for going to the border and bringing back this report. And my brother, Jonathan, he just fell in love with you. He just said, she is so dedicated. She is so dedicated. He said, I turned around and saw her and I said, what? And but we're not surprised that you were there. But what is surprising is that our government would turn these people away. And many of them said that they felt that they had been lured into the United States because many of them have been able to get in. It's been quiet, but they've been able to get in. Where are they now? Because it was such a bad look at the border in Texas. And then they cleared them out. Yeah. It seems like overnight. After you all were down there over a couple of days, they were all cleared out. Where are they?
So thousands and thousands were sent to Haiti. Many of them manacled on the flight. These are mothers, fathers, children sent back to Haiti. Now, some of those kids have never been to Haiti. They're not even Haitian citizens that were born outside the country. Haiti is a country where if you go on the State Department website and you look up travel to Haiti, there's a travel warning against all Americans going to Haiti, saying that you should not go because of roving gangs, uncontrolled violence, and inability of police to control that, and high rates of COVID-19. The other countries that are in the same category of the do not travel zone are Afghanistan, Yemen, and North Korea. And that's where we're sending refugees. It's just insane. It's a country that in the last year has had extraordinary hurricanes. It's had and tropical storms that have caused the untold damage is a country that had an earthquake that took out major hospitals and healthcare systems. And it's a country that had the assassination of their head of state and is in a state of chaos at the moment. So to send people there there are no words for that. And I was really happy to see Harold Koh step down from the State Department yesterday in protest, because this is just a horrific thing that's going on and completely illegal. Now, how are we doing this? It's done under something called Title 42. And Title 42 are, incidentally, these expulsions are ongoing, because there are still people in ICE detention, and there have been 66 deportation expulsion flights in the last 16 days. About 7,000, over 7,000 were children, 22%.
Oh my goodness.
And most of the Del Rio migrants were expelled. Many of those who were expelled are in shock if you read the accounts like in the New York Times. And then others remain in Acuna, which is in other parts of Mexico, where they're vulnerable to abuse from authorities and blatant racism within the infrastructure itself, inability to access medical care, difficulties finding food and shelter, broken asylum system. But as I was saying, Title 42 is the racist and unlawful system that must be rescinded immediately. And despite the outrage over men on horseback whipping black children, appearing to whip black children and families, the Biden administration is continuing to deport thousands of Haitians back into danger. It must do more to protect Haitians, starting by immediately halting the deportations to Haiti. And President Biden, who I love, and I've known my whole life, and, my father is his hero. When you look at the photographs in the Oval Office, you see the bust of my father. Mm-hmm. And so this is just beyond comprehension to me, but he must honor his word and reject and revoke Title 42, which prevents asylum seekers from making their asylum claims.
Title 42,
Yeah,
because we're still going on with the Trump administration policies. As your father's bust sits in President Biden's office. Let me just say this, because I hope that you will come back on the show. What is it about your father's legacy that keeps you moving, your father and your mother? Because your mother has done so much to keep your father's legacy alive and to raise all of you children. Please give our love to Mrs. Ethel Kennedy. What is it that keeps you going?
Nice.
Oh, absolutely. She's the backbone.
Thank you. Well, when my dad's last interview, he was asked that same question. What are you supposed to be doing here on Earth? And he quoted Camus, who said, perhaps this will always be a world in which children suffer, but we can reduce the number of suffering children. And he said, I'd like to be thought of as somebody who tried to reduce the suffering in our world. And I think that's what the struggle is all about, right?
Yeah.
Trying to create a more just and peaceful world. And that's what it is for me. But thank you so much. And please send my huge love to your parents as well. So happy that they're doing better after that scare this summer with COVID.
It was scary, but thank you to you and your family. Just down through the years, you all just have kept on giving. And a special thank you to your mother, who's kept on going. This woman had a child after she lost her husband and kept on raising these children. And look at what you all have done. You all continue to serve. And that says so much about your mother and your father. This joint Ethel Robert Kennedy project called These Wonderful Children. God bless you, Carrie Kennedy.
Thank you. God bless you. We'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. Much love and many blessings to you. John Nichols coming up, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show.
And Progressive on WC.
Thank you so much, Coast May. No, it almost gave you a heart attack.
No, it's all good. At first, she disconnected for a second when I first got her up, and then she called back in. So that was a little bit of a panic, but no, it was all good.
I could tell, but it's okay. It's okay.
It all worked out. So
It
was a
did.
good segment.
It
Again,
did.
she had a lot of interesting stuff to say.
Oh, she really did. Oh, what she saw on that, what she saw on the border is just like, ugh.
I still I feel bad, and I'm not surprised to hear that Haiti has like a hey Americans, you don't probably want to come here right now, because I imagine a lot of Haitians aren't very too kind to Americans right now.
Well, no. They still, you get there and you still, they are very, very kind. The thing is, the infrastructure's been destroyed.
Mm.
No, the infrastructure's been destroyed, but we're making a lot of money off of them.
Yeah.
Be very clear on that.
Gotcha.
That's what's so awful about what happens there. We have made so much money off of the Haitian people. It's just
not right.
Oh yeah.
You just turn them away.
It's just, oh yeah. We don't do that to anyone else but these black people.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
No, it's just racist. That's what it is. And it needs to stop.
I mean, it's just ridiculous to keep seeing America mess up like this. I don't know. It's kind of like a parent when your kid messes up and you just say that you're disappointed. It's like I just don't know what to say anymore. It's just disappointed.
Well, you have to continue to fight it, because the fact is, one day, if you don't fight it, it will be you.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's going to be my generation, soon enough. So.
Well, it's already yours. It's here.
Yeah.
It's here, and it'll be your family. Eventually everybody gets hit. If you don't take care of the least of these on one day, trust me, one day it'll be you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna go get Mr. Nichols up.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. That was Carrie Kennedy. She is the niece of John F. Kennedy, the daughter of Robert F. Kennedy, the former wife of the now just former governor of New York City. She's a human rights activist and a lawyer in her own right, mother of 3 beautiful children, and one of the, I think it's 11 children that Robert and Ethel Kennedy had. And remember, Mrs. Kennedy was pregnant on the night that she saw her husband assassinated right in front of her. And then she went on and had a child at the end of the year. And I just can't imagine the strength. And then she continued to go from strength to strength and raise all of those children. Thank you so much, honey. She raised all of those children, and they've all gone on to Congress. You've got Robert Kennedy Jr., who is a human rights lawyer, and he's an environmental lawyer. Many people have seen him. He's been deplatformed because of his fight for vaccine safety. Now, he's not an anti-vaxxer. He's into vaccine safety. But they just all continue to seek to serve. Her sister was lieutenant governor of Maryland. I mean, they just keep Kathleen. They just keep on going. And I have nothing but respect for that. Her brother Chris ran for governor here. That's what they do. They do it to serve. They do it to serve. They do it to serve. And I have such admiration and respect for them because of that. And because they look at life as Irish immigrants. That's why I brought that up.
10 seconds.
That was part of her uncle's disappointment in our CIA, taking out all of these emerging, these countries that were casting off the shackles of colonialism. It was rooted in that, everybody.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. If you want to hear the podcast of this show, please go to WCPT820.com/Santita. If you want to see what our discussion with R. Kelly last night, go to YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show. It's also on my Facebook page, but go to YouTube. It was about 45 minutes, about an hour really, of really good discussion about that case. And of course, we'll be following that and the other trials that come forth. So let's talk about this infrastructure. We've been talking about that. Everybody wants to know, when is it going to pass? Will it pass? Senators Sinema and Manchin want not $3.5 trillion, but maybe $1.5 trillion. Now, mind you, Bernie Sanders started off with $6 trillion. It was negotiated down to $3.5 trillion. Now $1.5. Are you serious? What gets cut? Who gets cut? Child care, tax credits, the opportunity for you to go to college, a community college for free for 2 years. Do you know how much that would save you in terms of all the credits that you would accrue that could transfer to a 4-year university? Think about that. What that would do to student loan debt. What about getting dental coverage under Medicare, vision coverage under Medicare, auditory coverage under Medicare? Think about that. There is so much. Think about people who've been formerly incarcerated who would be able to become entrepreneurs. There's a $5 million set aside in that $3.5 trillion that would go to the Small Business Administration that would allow you, if you had entrepreneurial aspirations and you were just coming out of prison, you'd be able to go to the SBA and get a loan. Think about that. There's just so much that is there, and yet there is the fight. And so guess what, John Nichols? Of course, it's the bottom of the hour bottom of the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show, and John Nichols from The Nation magazine is here. And of course, John Nichols, so people are now getting a little hot about this, John. These immigration activists followed Senator Kyrsten Sinema into the restroom on the Hill, demanding action on this bill. They said, no, Senator Sinema, we're right here. You need to talk to us. She was like, oh, she was so rattled, bless her heart. But this is serious business. So talk to me, because you said, now hold on, everybody, when Democrats go small, they lose big. So they need to go big so they don't lose it all. How about that?
That's exactly right. And that's the core concept that we ought to bring to this. You know, when we're talking about all these budget priorities, we should always remember the core premise that budgets are moral documents. They tell us where a president stands, where a member of Congress stands, where a political party stands. And if you go small, your message is, well, elect us and we'll do a little bit for you. We're not going to do a lot. We're not going to do everything that's needed, but Democrats will maybe do a little bit. That's a terrible message. It may get you through an occasional election if your opponents are really bad and the Republicans are really bad. So in 2020, just saying you weren't the Republicans got you a long way. There's no doubt of that. But Donald Trump won't be on the ballot in 2022. A lot of Republicans who will move just a little bit away from him, they will be on the ballot. And if Democrats have not delivered in a major way, the risk to them politically is huge, because it's not that people are going to switch over and vote Republican. It's that a lot of people are just going to say, well, you know, we went out in the midst of a pandemic and elected the Democrats to change things, and they didn't change things enough. They didn't do enough to address the real issues facing this country. And if you think I'm just talking theoretically, let me give you a quick historical run-through on this. In 1945, Franklin Roosevelt died. Roosevelt had won every presidential election and every midterm election for the Democrats throughout more than a dozen-year period. It had been a dominant period defined the Democratic Party in the modern era. Then Truman came in and Truman compromised. He didn't do as much. He got rid of the New Dealers. He did less. He lost his governing power in the 1946 election. You fast forward, Johnson, Kennedy, they actually did quite a bit. They survived. They held on. But Carter came along. He governed too cautiously. He didn't do what Ted Kennedy and other people said he needed to do. In 78, he lost a lot of his governing power. In 80, he lost the presidency. Fast forward to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton comes in. He does NAFTA. He works with Wall Street a lot. He undermines a lot of the labor agenda. He undermines a lot of the progressive agenda. He rejects many New Deal ideas. 1994, he loses his governing power. Fast forward to Barack Obama. Barack Obama comes in with a pretty good vision, but he's undercut by so-called centrist Democrats and so-called centrist Republicans, ends up not doing enough to respond to the Great Recession, compromising on the Affordable Care Act, not putting a public option in, things like that. 2010, turnout goes down. Obama loses his governing power. And so here's the reality of what happened. This is not something that happened once or twice. This is a definite pattern when Democrats are in charge. If they compromise away this social infrastructure plan, in fact, if they don't do both, the physical and the social infrastructure, at the level that is needed, they run the very real risk of losing their governing power in 2022 and potentially ending up in a situation where in 2024, we are back in a position where Donald Trump is president, Mitch McConnell is running the Senate, and the Republicans have the House of Representatives. And it won't be just like 2017. It will be much, much worse.
We're talking with John Nichols, national correspondent for The Nation magazine. You need to get the book, The Fight for the Soul of the Democratic Party, because it outlines this history. When Democrats go small, they lose big. And, quite frankly, I think we need to look at that, everybody, because indeed, Daryl says this. Biden and Harris need to go to West Virginia and Arizona to push these infrastructure bills. Tell those citizens what's in them, what will benefit them personally, and because it will benefit them tremendously. Thank you so much, Daryl. I mean, why is President Biden going to Michigan today? I mean, go to all 50 states and the territories. That's great. But if we are putting Senators Manchin and Sinema on Front Street, why is he not parking in West Virginia? Why is he not parking himself in Arizona? John.
That's a really good question. And it's kind of the vital question at the moment, because the president has to step up. He's got to use his bully pulpit in this moment, the same way Roosevelt used his bully pulpit to push Social Security, the same way Johnson used his bully pulpit to push civil rights, voting rights, Medicare, Medicaid. And the way you do that is twofold. Number one, you maintain the backroom pressure. You negotiate and pushing and, if need be, threatening a little bit on those Democrats that are not on board. But then you take it out to the public. You take it out to the people. And what that requires is using every platform you've got. So should Biden do an address to the nation? Absolutely, unquestionably. He should go on national television and say, this is what it's about. Spell it out. And then the next day, same way after like a State of the Union address, the next day he ought to get on an airplane and fly to Arizona and spend the day there talking about exactly what this Build Back Better plan would do for Arizona. And then he ought to fly to West Virginia and talk about exactly what this plan would do for Arizona. Now that's in your face. There's no question of that. But he doesn't even have to mention Sinema and Manchin. He doesn't have to mention their names. The message will come through directly. And here's the other thing that I think is very likely. If he flew into West Virginia with a little bit of organizing, I bet there'd be thousands of people out there saying, yes, we want to expand Medicare. Yes, we want paid family leave. Yes, we want free community college. Yes, we want funding for caregiving. And yes, we want to save the planet. And I think if we went down to Arizona, You think in Arizona, a state that people retire to, you aren't going to see a ton of people out there saying, yes, we would like vision, dental, and hearing care provided as part of Medicare. Yes, we would like caregiving for the elderly and people with disabilities. Of course, the crowds would be out. The energy would be there. And the president would build a counterbalance to a lousy media narrative that suggests this is just some sort of, two wings of the Democratic Party fighting with each other. This isn't two wings of the Democratic Party fighting with each other. This is 96% of the Democratic Party being on one side and a handful of people on the other side.
Call me 773-763. WCPT 773-763-9278. We're talking with John Nichols, national correspondent for The Nation magazine, author of the book You Gotta Get, The Fight for the Soul of the Democratic Party. You've got to get that because this is the fight that we're in. This is the fight that we're in. And Democrats better go big. If they go small, they will be sent home. They will lose big. Let me get to some of these callers because they have a lot to say. A lot of people are really engaged in this, John Nichols. They really, really are. Maurice, what's on your mind? Yeah.
Good morning, guys. Look,
good morning.
Pandora Papers, Panama tomato. Let me ask a question. All that human energy we saw in the streets on Saturday about the women's rights, what if that energy were directed at Chase, Citibank, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America? People start shutting down their accounts. Do you think we will see?
Oh, you keep going out, Maurice.
Hello?
Okay, you keep going in and out.
There you are. We lost you a little bit there.
Oh. Okay, I was asking John, what does he think would happen if all that energy we saw if it were directed at the major banks in America and people closing down thousands of accounts?
What do you think about that?
I think there's power in that, and I think that there's value in that. I think going after the banks matters. It matters on a whole host of levels, including the environment. Many of these banks still backing up some of the worst environmental policies. So it's a big deal. And also it relates very much to what we're talking about here, because the fact of the matter is that the lobbying against what President Biden has proposed on physical infrastructure, which, by the way, has a lot of environmental components to it, and on human infrastructure, which has both all sorts of components as regards caregiving, things like that, but also has an environmental component with climate core and things like that. All of these initiatives are being opposed by special interests. Big Pharma is in there with hundreds, thousands of lobbyists. The banks are in there with all sorts of lobbyists because they don't want the rich to pay more taxes. They don't want to have us, go after those who are frankly hiding money in offshore accounts as well as onshore. And so the fact of the matter is, a full court press is of tremendous value. And going after, I wouldn't just do the banks. I would go after all the special interests that are moving behind the scenes to stop this agenda from going forward. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that's being made right now, is that we spend all our time talking about Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. And they're easy villains in this storyline. But the fact is that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are doing the bidding of banks and of big pharma and of billionaires who don't want to pay their taxes.
And that really is the key, everybody. Joan says she agrees with you, John. She said, John Nichols is spot on here. This is the reason we came out and forced to elect Biden, even though for many of us, he was not our first choice. We gave him and the Democratic power gave them the power, so they need to use it. All right, I wanted to get that right for you, Joan. Let me go to Howard from Los Angeles. Howard, you called in yesterday, and I'm so glad that you're calling back today.
Well, thank you for taking my call. John Nichols, I like you, bro. I like what you say when you go like that. You said, why don't you go to Arizona and West Virginia, put it in their face, and let the people see all the progress here attract with his new plans and things. I have a problem with a lot of those congressmen and senators. They've been born like silver spoons in their mouth. You don't understand what it's like to be poor, how to might be evicted and not have enough food on the table and things like that. And that's why I really respect Cori Bush. She turned them out when she sat there at the Capitol 3 or 4 days. She let the people know, I can do this. I've done this, and I understand that. He should go to those states and put it in their face, and that will put egg on the Manchin's face and Sinema's face, because that shows where the people really are. And we need more people like that. Joe, one thing I kind of respect about Joe, he had hard times. You know, his father was unemployed for a while, and he had to move to another state. And that's why I can't understand about Sinema. Is that they say she lived in a abandoned gas station for a while, and she completely flipped. What happened to her? What's the psychology that made her completely flip, abandon how other people are living now? Don't you remember how she was?
Well, Howard, I think it's the money.
I really feel sorry for that.
Well, no, I think it's the money, Howard. Howard, I think it's the money. I think it's the money.
Yeah,
You
that
get
too.
up there.
Yeah, right.
It's a whole. Well, I mean, no, it's the people when you win elective office. Even the people who voted against you, who supported someone else, they come to you and they want to become your dear friends because they need you to do for them, right? And so you begin to see when you get to either house in Congress, you have to raise money for your party. That's one of the first calls you get. And then it just keeps on going from there. Then these people start lining up outside of your office and they control the levers of power. But the thing is, you know who has greater control? You do, as the voter. That's why we have to get involved. I want you to call 202-224-3121. And even though you're in LA, call her office and tell her what you want her to do. That's what you need to do. Let me bring up Chaparral because I want to get at least one more call in before we go. Chaparral, what's on your mind? I'm sending you much love, Howard, out in LA. Chaparral?
Good morning, Santita and John. I definitely appreciate you taking my call today. I wanted to say that I'm just sitting here listening to the conversation, and I'm still coming back to the point of who is the president. I see Manchin and Sinema running the show when it should be President Biden running the show. Whoever is his handlers are not making sound decisions. Hell, when I was looking at the TV this morning and them stating that he's going to Michigan, and I'm like, who in the hell picks Michigan? Who picks Michigan for the president to go to? When you have two senators in Arizona and West Virginia who are holding up this bill. And it keeps me coming back to the point, does Biden believe in this $3.5 trillion bill? Does he really want it to pass? Because he's doing everything opposite of what somebody who is interested in passing this bill should be doing. And we have to face that reality that he is playing games. We cannot sit up here and sugarcoat it and say he's trying to sell it. All of Midwest America believes and wants this bill. He ain't got to tell us nothing. We just sitting up here waiting for him to cash in on the check. Okay? He don't have to tell us nothing. He needs to go to those two states that are holding it up and blast them 24/7. He has, like you said, he has the bully pulpit. He can do stage address. He can do whatever he wants to get this message out. So I keep coming back to the point that he doesn't want the bill to pass. And somebody needs to tell me something different. Until he does what he needs to do, I'm going to still stick on that he don't believe in the bill. Thank you, Santita.
Well, thank you, because actually, this was what Bernie Sanders came up with: $6 trillion. It was whittled down to $3.5 trillion. And I'm just trying to figure out when I found out that he was going to Michigan, while everybody he met with Kirsten Sinema several times in one day last week. So I mean, I'm not making Senators Sinema and Manchin the issue. That's what they said. The White House said these people they're the people we need to get, and you're not going to their state, John. Come on, what is that?
Yeah,
What?
it's again. And you know what? This is the thing: is going to Michigan is talked about doing the debt ceiling, right? Pushing on the debt ceiling issue rather than going to the heart of the matter on the Build Back Better agenda, these big issues. And so, here's the problem. I think Biden believes in this because I'll tell you why. I think he's enough of a politician to know that this has got to happen, or he's going to end up, sitting there having to deal with Mitch McConnell every day for the last 2 years of his presidency. And so I think he believes in it, but I don't think that he has risen to the level of energy and frankly, excitement about what's got to happen. He's too much defaulting to the standard inside the Beltway way of doing things, and thinking, and I've heard this from a lot of Democrats in the Senate as well. They're thinking, well, if we just wait long enough, Manchin and Sinema are going to realize what they have to do. And the same with these corporate Democrats in the House of Representatives. But that isn't going to happen. That's just not going to, they aren't going to realize it because they are, in fact, politicians with very, very big egos. And their egos are being fed right now. They're the center of gravity. They're the center of where the action is. And intriguingly enough, if you look at the polling data of Arizona as an example, Sinema has gone down with Democrats, but she's gone up with Republicans. And so she's sitting there thinking, oh, I'm going to be the next John McCain. I'll appeal to, be a maverick that appeals across party lines, blah, blah, blah. So she's not getting the message. Neither is Manchin. Neither are these centrist Democrats in the House. And so what Biden has to do, again, it's a twofold strategy. Yeah, he has to keep the pressure on inside Washington, all that inside the Beltway stuff, behind closed doors, blah, blah, blah. But he's also got to take this thing out to the American people so that the American people have a chance to rally on behalf of what's good for the American people, what's good for Biden, what's good for the Democratic Party, what's good for the country. And that involves addressing the nation, national television, use that bully pulpit, and then it involves getting on an airplane the same way a president does after delivering a State of the Union address and going to the key states. In this case, the key states are Arizona, of course, with Sinema, West Virginia, of course, with Manchin, but also go up to New Jersey, fly right into Josh Gottheimer's district,
absolutely,
and do an event where you say, if I can get all the members of the House on board for this, then we can pressure the Senate to do the right thing. So, it's just not complicated stuff. And will some of the so-called conservatives or centrists scream? Yeah, so be it. They're screaming now. Let them keep screaming. But let the people who are on the progressive side, let them have something to scream for as well.
They've got to do something because this is not working. And, I have to tell you, I think Chaparro makes a point. Wait a minute. He's a politician. There's no question about it. And he's practical. But John, he's not making any practical sense right now. Okay. Because, this is a corporate driven party, even though they need populist votes. In Michigan today? No, You need to be in West Virginia. You need to be in Arizona. And you need to deploy all of your top Democrats out there. That's what you need to do. It's just to think, goodness gracious, this is crazy. While they're trying to whittle what was $6 trillion is now $3.5 trillion. They're trying to make it $1.5 trillion. What are you going to cut? Something grandma's choppers? Is she not going to get dental coverage and Medicare, hearing, vision?
You're exactly right.
What is that? I've got 1 minute. It belongs to you, literally.
But you just said it. That's what we need to focus on. We shouldn't ever be talking about 3.5 versus 1.5. We shouldn't be talking about Manchin and Sinema.
Mm-hmm.
We should be talking about vision, dental, and hearing for the elderly. We should be talking about caregiving for people who are older and for people with disabilities. We should be talking about extending that child credit, that child tax credit, which literally reduces poverty in America. We should be talking about the education programs, saving the planet, all the things that are in this piece of legislation. If you're talking about that, suddenly then you put Manchin and Sinema and all these people in a corner because then they're being asked, why aren't you in favor of
40 seconds.
getting dental care?
That's all that needs to
What
happen.
the hell is wrong with you?
I mean, that's all that needs to happen. That's all he needs to do. And stop playing, because people's lives are at stake here. And we just need to just put it right there. John Nichols, everybody, get the book, The Fight for the Soul of the Democratic Party. It outlines this fight, and it lets you know that we have won every time we fought. Reverend Jackson says, hey, we have never lost a battle unless we decided not to fight. So get out here. Call 202-224-3121. Call these congressmen in both houses. That's right. Technically, the U.S. Senator is a congressperson, too. Call them and tell them you want the $3.5 trillion passed and you want that trillion-plus dollar infrastructure bill passed. Personal, institutional, we need it right now. Sending you much love, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. If you want to hear the podcast, go to WCPT820.com/Santita. It's been a joy being with you today. Love you. God bless. John Nichols, I am running to a Zoom. Oh,
you got to do it.
Oh my gosh! Like, what were we thinking? But you remember that? You come on and Zoom. Come on and Zoom. I loved that show, particularly the first group, because that's my group.
There was also, there was a Zoom, there was a song. Who's zooming who?
Oh, that's Aretha.
Remember?
That's when we were grown then.
Absolutely.
I'm just talking about Zoom from PBS. PBS was my station growing up.
I'm just adding on to the Zoom and
know
mood that you're clearly in.
Yeah, no, I'm not
in a
mad at
zooming
you.
mood.
Who's zooming who? Now, they should use that. It's their theme song. Hey, it's the Queen of Soul. What you gonna do?
Right.
I love you, John.
Love you too.
Thank you
Keep
so much
strong.
for being
Go
with
do
us.
lots of good things today. I'll talk to you soon.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled. How about that? Sending you much love.
Keep your eyes peeled, or we'll peel them for you.
Thank you. I love you,
care.
everybody. Love you, John. Love you, everybody. Have a super fantastic day. That's right, Barbara and Lorraine and Dave and D-Ray and my boyfriend down there in Venezuela, Abraham. Sending you much love, everybody. Kenneth, I love you. I love you. Bernard, I love you. I love you. Love you. Love you. Love you. Carol, my sister out on the left coast. Love you all. D-Ray, Michael, Ann, everybody, start going over to YouTube. That's what we were told we need to do yesterday. Dr. Reeves said it, and it's true. So let's start going over. Meet me over on the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube, okay? I love you, everybody. I'm going to see you tomorrow. Hey. Bye-bye.